the Space Wolves, the Yat, the Rout, the Valka Fenrica, the Emperor's Executioners. All these names and more are used to describe the subject of today's look at the Space Marines. The planet of Fenris is a world of ice and fire, dominated by extremes of climate and an erratic orbit that makes it one of the most turbulent worlds inhabited by man. For the most part, its surface is covered by water, and its tiny land masses are no more than islands scattered sparsely upon the mighty sea. The one and only sizable continent, Asaheim, lies at the North Pole. The planet of Fenris follows an extreme elliptical orbit around its pale sun. The Great Year, the period it takes Fenris to complete a single orbit, is approximately 2 Earth years long. For much of this long year, the world is remote from its sun and its surface remains bitterly cold. The icy oceans freeze over as Fenris draws away from its sun, and at its farthest point, even the equatorial seas are covered with ice. Towards the end of the year, the planet sweeps close to the sun once more. The wolf's eye swells in the sky, and a brief spring warms the surface of Fenris. During this period, the ice retreats to the poles, and countless denizens of the deep waters emerge to enjoy the bounty of the sun-spawned plankton and other short-lived oceanic life forms. As Fenris reaches its perihelion, the point at which it is closest to the sun, the massive gravitational pull begins to affect the planet. Aside from the rocky polar continent of Asaheim, the land masses of Fenris are unstable, and the crust of the planet is thin. The passage of the planet close to its sun breaks and twists the delicate sub-oceanic crust, exposing the molten core to the icy waters. With explosive violence, the world is torn asunder. Blazing islands rise from the sea, spewing fire and pouring lava down their slopes. Below the surface, the waters boil into steam, which engulfs Fenris with its sulphurous fumes. Great tidal waves scour the coast of Asaheim, but the mighty rock stands fast. A single changeless land amongst a planet undergoing a savage metamorphosis. Elsewhere, islands created in the upheaval of preceding years are cast into turmoil. Some survive, but many are broken apart or swallowed by the sea, engulfed in churning oceans, casting their inhabitants into the merciless deep. Of all of the Primarchs of the Legion Astartes, few are as legend-shrouded or as little understood as Leman Russ, Master of the Space Wolves and Lord of the icy death world of Fenris. To some, he was no more than a savage and bestial chieftain gifted the power of a god, one of the Emperor's monsters, as terrifying and inhuman in his own way as the horror-obsessed Night Haunter or the blood-bedecked berserker Angron. To others, he was an incomparable warlord, ferocious beyond measure, but also faultlessly loyal, as unwavering in battle, as adamant and as cold-hearted to his foes as the killing frost that shrouded his world's winters. Both opinions perhaps were true to some measure, but neither had the full tale. For though as undoubtedly as savage as Leman Russ was, and no matter how much the beast marked him, as it did not his brothers, he was also wise beyond his legion's barbaric appearances, and self-aware to a degree few guessed at, which made him doubly dangerous. Leman Russ was the so-called Wolf King of the primitive death world Fenris, a world that should not be possible. Fenris' ecology of burgeoning megafauna, its shifting geology of frozen seas and molten islands, its storm-racked climate of hell winters and burning summers, and even its extant path through space represent paradoxes of and contradictions of nature. It is speculated that Fenris was perhaps artificially constructed in a bygone epoch so as to create the exact conditions required for precisely one thing, raising a hardy savage warrior race and their king. There would be no bright towers in industry for Fenris under the Imperium. Its conditions would be carefully preserved and shrouded in deeper myth by Russ and the Emperor. Leman Russ's early history is remembered through allegorical accounts that speak of his upbringing by a pack of wolves, the barbaric wars he fought for supremacy, and that when he met his father, he challenged him to a contest of strength, wit, and will, like the Norse kings of old Earth. What is fact is that Russ himself was not a savage, but possessed of dazzling intellect and a singular cunning, giving his rivals the impression of dull-witted barbarity, while holding logic and reason as high virtues. Though he embraced Fenris' culture, as headstrong and defined right and wrong in the starkest terms, Russ took easily to his role in the Imperium, absorbing readily its advanced technology and accepting the Emperor's vision of galactic unity. His testing and training was brief compared to the Primarchs, and he quickly took full command of his legion. one that could now thrive with the stabilising intervention of his Canis gene helix upon its gene seed. Russ ultimately reshaped the 6th Legion, a force which notoriously disrespected high authority and followed only strength, with the tradition of Fenris, tempering their feral nature and commanding their respect by will and deed. In the early years of the Great Crusade, the Space Wolves were kept at the Emperor's side, unleashed when necessary. As the Crusade went on, and they reunited their Primarch, they started taking on campaigns of their own. All the Primarchs saw the Space Wolves as savages, more as a whirlwind of death and destruction. This was not the case, but this was what Russ wanted the rest of the Imperium to think. The Space Wolves' most famous battle during the Horus Heresy was the Battle of Prospero. The Emperor had put a ban on all sorcery, and Magnus, seeing what was due to happen to his brother Horus, used sorcery to warn the Emperor. The Emperor was not keen and sent an order for Russ to bring Magnus in. Horus, on hearing this, twisted the orders and gave Russ a kill order. The Space Wolves landed on Prospero, the Thousand Suns homeworld, at the host of an entire legion, the Sisters of Silence, who were psychic nulls, and the Adeptus Custodes, the Emperor's personal guard. The fighting was long and hard, and in the end Russ made it to Typica City, where Magnus was fighting with his legion. Brother fought brother, and with a mighty roar, Russ picked up Magnus and snapped his brother's back over his knee. Magnus summoned a warp storm and brought all the Thousand Suns off Prospero and into the warp. The Space Wolves' 13th Company were assigned to hunt the Thousand Suns and followed them into the warp. The 13th Company were never seen again. Though victorious, Prospero was a mark of shame for the 6th Legion, which realised it unwittingly perpetrated the first open act of fratricide of the Horus Heresy. The Legion fought bitterly throughout the Age of Darkness to scour that mark from its honour. However, the traitors were intent on punishing the wounded Space Wolves for the arrogance they showed in holding themselves as a Legion apart. Many thousands of Space Wolves fought across the galaxy in small battle groups, but the bulk of the Legion would remain united throughout the Horus Heresy. Alongside Russ, they would suffer terribly, but always snatch an epic saga from the jaws of painful defeat. At Alaxis, they were harried through the nebulae by the Alpha Legion. At Vanaheim, a stalemate conflict was concluded when the Legion's unbridled rage was unleashed upon the entrenched Iron Warriors. In the aftermath of the Heresy, the Space Wolves took to the stars with glee. They left Earth and descended onto traitor planets, Legion homeworlds, and anywhere there were traitors and destroyed them for turning against the Emperor. When this was accomplished, the Space Wolves feasted to celebrate the end of the Scouring and the Mourning of the Dead. During this feast, Russ stood up and gathered his closest retainers and left the Great Hall, never to be seen again. After 7 years, the Wolves turned to the last member of Russ's company, Bjorn, who had been left behind, and made him the Great Wolf. Bjorn immediately called for a great hunt across the stars to find the Primarch. For 7 years the Wolves hunted across the stars, but never found the Primarch, but managed to destroy many Xenos races and bring low any Chaos worshippers they found. The Wolves have conducted 30 great hunts over the past 10,000 years, and every hunt has either helped the Imperium or brought lost relics to the Wolves. The second great hunt found the armour of the Primarch, which was placed in the trophy hall of the Fang. 1,000 years after the sacking of Prospero, the Thousand Suns returned to the galaxy. Using their psychic abilities, they lured the majority of the Space Wolves away from Fenris by teasing them with the possibility of finishing what they started on Prospero. One company was left behind to protect the Fang. The majority of the chapter away, the Thousand Suns invaded Fenris. After 40 days and nights of siege, the rest of the chapter returned and put the Thousand Suns to flight. During the Age of Apostasy, the Wolves were involved again when the Cardinal Baccharis led his plague of unbelief into the Fenris system. The Space Wolves didn't take kindly to this, and after establishing that they were a hostile force, they took to the stars and obliterated the invading fleet. 10,000 years after the Heresy, Magnus returned. The Fenris system was invaded by the Thousand Sons, and the wolves took to fighting their hated foes. Magnus, having learnt from his mistakes last time, wrapped himself in spells, ensuring that no weapon made by the Imperium could harm him. He landed on Fenris and proceeded to the Fang. Realising what was going on, Logan Grimnar, the Great Wolf, led a mixed force back to Fenris. Magnus fought the wolves, and many great heroes were lost. However, Grimnar attacked Magnus and managed to wound the Primarch with his axe. Magnus eventually fled with his forces, but Fenris had been changed forever. After the Primarch Gulliman left Earth with the Indomitus Crusade, he arrived on Fenris with the Primaris Marines. Distrustful at first, the new Marines proved themselves to the wolves and were accepted by the Rout. The Space Wolves Legion was organised unlike any other, with 13 distinct great companies, each nominally consisting of 10,000 Space Marines that competed for glory in the favour of their Wolf King, Leman Russ. These had diverse characters, such as the first company, On, which are of the Varangier elite, the Wolf Guard of Russ's own household, and the 7th company, the so-called Landavain Destroyers and Layers of Waste. Each great company was led by a Jarl, or Wolf Lord. One of these Jarls were many lieutenants, named Thane or Claw Leader, and a number of Thanes was very much at the discretion of the Jarls, who ruled their companies as a wolf leads a pack. The Thanes were in turn responsible for any number of packs, ranging to small tactical units or task forces, which each had a Huskar leader to keep its warriors in line. The Space Wolves were heavily infantry focused in their martial ways. Packs were conditioned to hold a near suicidal disregard for danger, and trained to exploit this to the fullest extent on the battlefield, pitting their courage and might where it would be most effective. In the very teeth of the foe, overwhelming opponents by sheer speed and ferocity of attack, both in hand-to-hand combat and in brutal short-ranged firefights. As time went on, tactical dispositions shifted to better accommodate its preference, leading to the creation of unique shock units such as the Grey Slayers and Bloodied Corps, which came to compose the bulk of the core infantry of the Legion. Each great company is near autonomous. They do not conform to the structures laid out in the Codex Astartes, and charges have often been levied, from a safe distance, that the Space Wolves maintain far more warriors than its dictates allow. Each is commanded by a Wolf Lord, equivalent to the captains of other chapters. He rules a brotherhood of eager warriors fueled by battle lust, his resources giving the capacity to hunt down and kill any prey. In the Wolf Lord's lair, within the Fang, are stores of powerful wargear, master-crafted weapons. He commands a fleet of warships to sail the Sea of Stars, as well as powerful war engines such as battle tanks, anti-grav vehicles and bulky warsuits, some of which are centuries or even millennia old, their machine spirits as aggressive and savage as ever. Upon the enormous stone tablets of the Grand Annalus within the hall of the Great Wolf on Fenris, each great company is recognised by the sigil of their Wolf Lord. The Space Wolves have used many dozen sigils throughout their history, some descend from ancient Fenrisian myths, but many developed solely in the Space Wolves' own mystic traditions. Some, like the Spirit Wolf, have not been selected in millennia. The symbolism of each is not only fixed in myth, but absorbs the deeds and characters of each great company, consuming their sagas. Thus do some sigils recur in cycles of prominence, while others, with connections to fallen heroes or to bad omens, remain thought of as cursed. Such is the case with the Hunger Skull, tied forever to the traitor Jorgon Vor. The Bloodmoors. Bran Redmoor's personal icon is the Bloodied Hunter, and his company's savagery is legend. Some say the curse of the Wolfen runs deep within their ranks. Bran has been seen to attack with a howling pack of Wolfen, and sometimes even succumbs to the Canis Helix himself in battle. Yet his warriors are also cunning. The Wolf Lord's numerous Grey Hunters often lie in wait to the foe's rear after the fury of Bran's frontal attack forces their enemy's retreat. The Sea-Wolves. Engir Krakendoom's sigil is that of the Sea-Wolf. Often chosen from the Kraken hunting islands of the south, many of his men are dark of skin and temperament. They go to war embarked upon armoured transports and airborne assault craft adorned with shields. Their swift claws and outriders harry the foe upon the flanks, ensuring the packs reach the enemy in an unstoppable tide. The Sons of Morkai. Named after the wolf god long before taking on the sign of the two-headed beast, Eric Morkai has always been grim and stern of aspect. His company has a great many wolf scout packs, fellow hard-eyed warriors who appreciate their master's taciturn demeanour. Eric's terrifying effective methods involve solving problems with swift and bloody acts of violence. It is rumoured that the growing cult of the Hounds of Morkai look to Eric as a silent alpha. The Red Moons. The Wolf of the Red Moon is a skeletal beast that prowls the seven hells in Fenrisian myth, devouring the unworthy yet never growing fat. The Wolf Lord who bears this symbol, Gunnar Redmoon, is a roaring bear of a man and as boastful as a bard. He favours fang packs such as aggressors and centurion devastators. Like him, they are possessed with a strong appetite for heavy firepower and even heavier feasting. The Champions of Fenris. The great company of Logan Grimnar is fanatically loyal to its charismatic and cunning leader. Each warrior is extremely proud of his link to the supreme lord of the chapter and constantly vies with his peers for the Great Wolf's favour. Logan Grimnar firmly believes that a battle can be carried by a few heroes in the right place at the right time, and as such makes effective use of the many Wolf Guard in his great company. The Death Wolves. Harald Deathwolf takes the symbol of the ravening jaw, icon of the wolf time, when Morkai will eat the sun and eternal night will shroud the stars. Harald himself rides to war upon Icetooth, a great grey thunderwolf. He is the chapter's foremost hunter, for his senses are so sharp he can smell fear. Harald's great company includes a host of lupine beasts, be they flesh and blood or cybernetic constructs. The Storm Wolves. Bjorn Stormwolf is a ruddy mountain of muscle and bellowed impatience. He has taken Draken the Thunderwolf as his symbol, for he too is a creature of ferocity over stealth. When the Stormwolves go to war, they utilise many heavy weapons, bikes, vindicators and jump packs, for they rejoice in the din of battle more than any other company. The Iron Wolves. Vorak Nalfist has cemented his relatively recent position amongst the Wolf Lords. Having learned his craft under Lord Egil, whose Iron Wolf sigil he kept as a mark of respect, his great company's armoured assaults are greatly feared. Squadrons of repulsor executioners hunt monstrous enemies, while Vorak's packs of wolf scouts outflank the foe in impulsor transports before closing on them like iron jaws. The Drake Slayers. Crom Dragongaze has a presence of will so strong that his fiercely loyal wolf guards say only the mythical Sun Wolf has a hope of staring him down. Crom loves taking part in all kinds of contests, from the trial of Bladed Eye to the rivalries he fosters in his great company and without. The Blackmanes. Perhaps the most talented wolf lord of all, Ragnar Blackmane's sheer ferocity is the stuff of legend. Though he is comparatively young, he is without a doubt a warrior born. Ragnar frequently has the honour of planning and leading the Space Wolf's planetary invasions, seeding the world with ravening packs of reavers before launching one of his famed lightning-fast drop assaults. The Fire Howlers. Sven Bloodhowl, Lord of the Fire Howlers, has been missing since he assaulted the Will of Eternity, one of Abaddon's Blackstone fortresses. While some believe his saga to be ended, his Wolfguard rule in his name until his fate is determined. The Fire Howlers tattoo themselves with Bloodhowl's volcanic icon, the Fire Breather, alongside runes decepting their own sagas. The Grimbloods. In Fenrisian myth, the Firewolf burns without being consumed. Some whisper Kjarl Grimblood bears a gift, that he can see visions in the fires of war. The Wolf Lord and his packs have not been seen on Fenris in a long time, as they burn a trail of destruction through the endless warbands of equally savage orcs. The 13th Company. The blank namestone set in the Grand Annals was once that of Yorin Bloodhowl's great company, known as the Wolfenkind. They who hounded the Thousand Suns into the warp during the Horus Heresy. Though some Wolfen appear to have returned, this stone continues to represent all of the great companies across history that have fallen or were lost in battle. So that's a look at the Space Wolves, from the founding to the present day. If you've enjoyed this, there's more videos to come. Like and subscribe, and I'm putting up plenty more content, and there'll be more on the way soon.